Hello everyone, welcome to another card video. Today I'm going to be using some craft foam, both black and white, a piece of Bristol smooth, and my fog card base. So I'm just making a line here with my T-square. I want to be able to stamp my images pretty straight. So I'm stamping my images in VersaFine Onyx Black. I'm using Lawn Fawn's Monster Mash. And we're going to be doing some masking. This card was difficult, okay? To say the least. This took me some attempts, okay? So I'm stamping and masking and clear heat embossing my images. I'm doing this so that I can watercolor with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, but I make a mess with VersaFine Onyx Black. I mean, I make a mess. There are fingerprints on everything and smears and smudges, and it was difficult. I had to take a break. I probably should have poured myself a glass of wine, but it's my nephew's birthday and this is his card. So I'm trying very desperately to get this right. Of course, I didn't get it right the first time. So you'll see me right now. I did not like stamping this image up high. I wanted to make him appear like he was flying, but then I stamped these balloons behind him by masking and stamping the balloons. Well, I didn't like that there were no balloon strings. So you'll see me stare at it, and then I completely re-stamped the whole thing like 2 more times. But we're not counting. But in the finished project, I made that bat monster lower to the ground. See how the balloon strings are kind of short and stubby? I didn't like that. So, good thing it's only paper, right? So here's the arrangement that I did like, and I'm using some masking paper and distressed ink in Mermaid Lagoon, and this is definitely a card that I learned from. So I'm sponging a blue background. We're going to sponge and we're going to spritz. Yes, we're breaking out the Tim Holtz marker spritzer tool. I'm not sure what the whole name of that tool is, but everything is linked below and on my blog. But I'm using Mermaid Lagoon and a little sponge dauber to try to get some blue background. Now the whole idea that I went with was to spritz and kind of make it look airbrushed or splattered, and it does. This is going to take a few more tries for me to get, I guess, the look that I wanted to go for, but I think it's super fun and I like the way it turned out in the end. Good enough, at least. I'm literally blowing the Inkadinkadoo masking paper right off the project while I'm doing this. So, in hindsight, you should use something a little more sticky, but it worked. It did the job. So now I am going to go for the bottom. I used Distress ink in Twisted Citron, and the markers that I'm using in the spritzer are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. Anything with a brush tip or nib, or even the chisel nib on the Copics work with that marker spritzer. So that's a fun tool to play with. I've used it a couple times and I really like the look that it gives for certain projects. So I'm just putting down some Twisted Citron, and then I'm going to do it the exact same thing with the marker tool and a green Zig Clean Color Real Brush marker. Now, it's probably important to use a contrasting or darker color than what you're inking. The green you don't see as much on the finished project because I think the green in the marker was too similar to the inking that I did with with the Twisted Citron. So possibly next time I'll do a darker green. You know, you live and you learn. So I'm pulling off my masks to reveal the images below. This masking paper I got from Amazon, and I use it so much. I've just actually, I reordered it. That was new in my stash. So I'm just filling in the background because I didn't think it was quite enough blue. Then I'm gonna cut the background down using a Mama Elephant Femme Frames rectangle. Oh, I'm gonna color it first, clearly. So I'm using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers to color in the images very quickly and not technical. I'm just putting the color down in the areas in which I thought would be the darkest for shade or contrast. And then I'm using my watercolor, I think this is a number 2 round. So that's the technique that I'm using, is I'm just putting down the darker spots and blending it out into the lighter areas. So I ended up not liking the dark blue that I put down on their hats, and I went over it with my Jelly Roll, my white gel pen, in later to kind of lighten that color up. So I'm finishing it off with some black in some certain areas, and now I'm gonna cut it with the Femme Frames die. Here's where it gets very stressful. I'm going to take these inline letters by Mama Elephant, and I'm going to cut Brice's name right out of my front panel. So all that work, yeah, I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to make double sure that these letters are straight, and as straight as possible. I'm lining them up on my grid mat using the little ruler as a ledge. And then I'm going to pick them up with this delicate surface painter's tape. But I am getting a lot of the sticky off first. I don't want the sticky to pull my paper. So I'm going to trim it down so that there's even less sticky. And line it up where I sort of kind of want his name cut out. And I make sure with my little ruler, because this is it. If you cut it, you cut it. So I'm just trying to make it as straight as possible. And it's cut. No going back now. So you have to keep all of those little parts that are being cut out from the letters. And then I'm going to cut it also out of black craft foam. And keep all of those parts. So to make this little trick a little easier, I'm going to grab some typing paper, some computer paper, and cut it down. This is going to be like my backing piece for the name. I'm just going to cover it with some adhesive. and then put it adhesive side up so that the adhesive shows through on those letters. It's going to help me stick everything down. I'm also going to use some Ranger Multimedia Matte to first adhere down the black craft foam, and then adhere, after all of those are stuck down, I'm going to adhere the cutout letters, which makes it the camouflage inlaid dye technique. So now that you have all the letters adhered and popped up, you're going to take the inside, the negative die cuts, to fill in those areas. And those are going straight down onto the typing paper. This helps it appear popped up. So that's why you have to keep all of those little pieces. So once we get all of those little pieces adhered, we're going to stamp right on their face. So if this card wasn't stressful enough, we're going to stamp right on that image. So I'm using my Misty to help make this a little easier on myself. We're stamping it in Onyx Black, VersaFine Onyx Black, and I'm going to stamp it twice so that it's pretty dark, nice dark stamping. And to make it, we're going to heat emboss it first. And then to make it appear, I guess, contrasting, we're going to take a white gel pen and outline, practically paint an outline right next to the letters. So these thin letters are going to get a white gel pen outline around them. And it's going to help those letters stand out. I've learned this from Kelly Lovato. I've watched her do this. So anytime you're not quite sure where to stamp a sentiment, stamp it right on their face, and you can outline it with this white, and it looks really cool if you don't really care about, like, you know, seeing the whole image. I thought this was pretty neat and adventurous, and I went for it. So we're using some 1/2" score tape to make sure that this sucker is adhered. And I used a piece of craft foam to pop it up. Make sure it's nice and stuck down. That's not going anywhere. And now I'm taking different Nuvo drops. I'm using green apple, onyx black, oyster gray, Caribbean blue. And we're just making like confetti, basically. And that's it. That's the card for today. I hope I didn't stress you out too much. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.